Standardized testing is a topic of increased debate in America today. Parents, schools, and politicians all seem to have a take on this issue. There are arguments for and against their use and effectiveness, but I'm here to tell you that standardized testing is hurting our nation's youth. One of the biggest arguments against standardized testing is that it forces teachers to teach to the test. This implies that students are being taught to memorize the information and processes in order to make high marks on their exams. While this can be successful in achieving higher test scores, the information is not internalized. These students are simply cramming in information for recall during the actual test. More often than not, students will forget this information after the exam is over because it has only been processed for short-term application. Students are often fed buzzwords to look for rather than achieving a deep comprehension of the concepts. Another problem that arises when teaching to the test is that these tests are often multiple choice questions with one answer. This teaches students that there is only one solution to any given problem and discourages divergent thinking. With this model of learning, there's little room for creativity and critical thinking in the classroom. Students are drilled and drilled and drilled on the facts and figures over and over again until it's become second nature. Everything is done by the book and follows the guidelines and standards that are assigned by the state. This brings me to my next point. Education is definitely a hot topic in the realm of politics. Many politicians take hard stances on education reform. Standardized testing makes it easy for political candidates because it provides simple, if inaccurate, ways of tracking schools' progress. The system of standardized testing yields itself to political slogans like tougher standards or raising the bar. The problem with this is that while standardized testing provides data on student achievement, it is only measuring quantitative data on how many questions students are able to memorize. Standardized tests have no way to measure things like creativity and mastery of concepts. Business also plays a part in the issue of standardized testing. All of the tests that are administered are provided to the schools by companies who are trying to make money. They provide an option for schools that make it fast, easy, and cheap to administer exams. The tests are sent to the school and are then sent back to the company to be graded by machines. The low cost and fast turnaround don't provide any incentive to use testing where qualitative data is evaluated by actual human beings. This level of testing seems to be uniquely American, as many other countries don't begin using tests like this until children are around 16 years old. There are many flaws in the way that standardized testing gathers data. It can't truly assess the potential of an individual student. Many students don't put much effort into these types of tests because they see them as pointless or boring. Their aptitude for creativity may be high, but there is no way of measuring that with modern standardized testing. Others can become overwhelmed by the pressure that is put on them. Many of the tests are used to make high-stakes decisions, like class placement, or whether or not a person moves on to the next grade. This, coupled with the fact that students are timed, can produce a great deal of anxiety and stress in students. When students are measured in that state of mind, any measurement of their ability will most likely be altered. One of the criticisms of these tests is that they are unrealistic and that they don't prepare students for future careers. Standardized testing doesn't allow students to work together or ask for help. Most jobs in the real world require collaboration and emphasize communication with others. Once again, standardized tests consist of multiple choice questions that have one answer. In a real job situation, there are a plethora of ways to go about solving a problem, and there are usually more than a few solutions. Training kids to believe that there is only one single answer per given question is only going to hinder their ability to solve problems creatively. In addition to that, the tests have no way to observe the process of how a student arrives at an answer. Even when students are asked to read a passage and answer comprehension questions, they are not asked to justify why they chose what they chose. There is no way to distinguish between a careless student who guessed randomly or the analytical student who went through a cognitive process and arrived at an answer that was deemed incorrect. The main problem is that high-stakes decisions are being made based on scores of tests that don't adequately measure an individual's potential. A flaw that has been pointed out on numerous occasions is the correlation of test scores to an individual's socioeconomic status. It is consistently shown that schools in lower class areas produce lower test scores than schools in more affluent areas. Based on these results, many schools aren't receiving as much funding and resources as schools with better scores. With that system in place, schools with high scores will only improve, while schools with lower scores will only get worse. Some schools are even forced to shut down. Education is important, and if schools in low-class areas get less and less effective, then the people in those areas will be at an even greater disadvantage. There is obviously a great need for educational reform in our nation's legislature. I believe that one of the first steps to improving the way we learn and prepare our youth for the future is to take action against the current system of standardized testing, so that we can all give a better learning experience to the next generation.